He had pictured her as small and delicate soft hands, perfect for tending his garden. Gentle words to break the silence of his lonely ranch. But when the wagon dust settled, Emmett Sloan found himself staring up at a woman who looked as if she could lift him with one arm. Willa Blaine stood 6 feet tall in scuffed boots, shoulders broader than most men in town, and hands that seemed more suited for gripping a plow than balancing a teacup. The letter in his pocket suddenly felt like a cruel joke, and the oak ring he had carved with trembling hope seemed impossibly small. 3 months earlier, Emmett had placed his desperate advertisement in the territorial newspaper. Honest rancher seeks gentle companion for frontier life, must appreciate simple pleasures and quiet evenings. He had written it with shaking hands, his heart weighed down by loneliness. Out of all the world, only one response had come. Willa's letters, written in neat script, spoke of the same solitude that haunted him. Her words had painted pictures of warm meals, quiet conversation, and mutual understanding. Nowhere had she mentioned she was taller than his barn door. Fletcher Knox, the merchant who arranged their meeting, cleared his throat nervously as he climbed down from the wagon. His eyes flickered between Emmett's stunned expression and Willa's imposing figure. The woman's confident posture wavered when her gaze fell on Emmett's slight frame and the way he had to tilt his head back just to meet her eyes. For a long, uncomfortable moment, the three of them stood frozen in the dusty yard like actors who had forgotten their lines. Around them, curious neighbors gathered, whispering and pointing. Mrs. Henderson muttered to her husband. Tommy Morrison pointed outright until his mother yanked his arm down. Emmett's cheeks burned not from the hot sun, but from the sharp sting of embarrassment. Finally, Willa broke the silence. Her voice was deeper than he expected, though not unkind. "You must be Emmett." She extended a hand, when he reluctantly placed his own into it. She closed her fingers carefully around his, her strength obvious but controlled. "I suppose we should talk," she said, her tone carrying the same doubts racing through his mind. Fletcher Knox, eager to escape the tension he had helped create, busied himself unloading her single trunk large enough to remind Emmett again that nothing about this arrangement was what he had imagined. And yet, as Willa looked over his modest ranch, her face didn't twist in disappointment. She nodded at the neat garden, at the firewood stacked by the porch. She didn't sneer at the patched fence or the humble cabin. For the first time, Emmett saw something in her expression that wasn't pity or judgment, but genuine interest. The next morning tested them both. Dakota, Emmett's prized bull, had broken through the fence during the night and now stood in the middle of Mrs. Henderson's flower garden 3 properties away, tearing through roses and trampling border stones as though they were weeds. The neighbors shouted, the furious woman shrieked accusations, and 2 men had already been sent fleeing after failed attempts to rope him. Emmett wrung his hands on the porch, helpless. Dakota weighed nearly 2,000 pounds and had a storm cloud's temperament. He had always feared this day. "You can't rope him from here," Willa said quietly, appearing at his elbow. For someone so tall, she moved with startling silence. "And if those men keep coming at him head-on, they'll get themselves trampled." Emmett could only nod miserably. Without another word, Willa stepped off the porch and strode across the field. "Willa, wait," Emmett cried, panic tightening his throat. "He's dangerous." But she didn't slow. The crowd fell silent as they watched her climb the fence and walked directly toward the raging bull with empty hands. Dakota's massive head swung toward her, breath huffing in angry bursts, eyes rolling wide. Everyone braced for blood, but Willa spoke. Her voice carried low and steady, words spilling like water smoothing stones. Instead of sharp commands, she offered a rhythm calm, coaxing. The bull hesitated. His pawing slowed, his ears flicked forward. "Easy there, big fellow," she murmured, extending her hand, palm up. "You're not angry, just lost. Let's fix that." Step by step, she closed the distance until her hand rested on his massive neck. The beast let out a sound that was almost a sigh. Then, unbelievably, he leaned into her touch like a hound seeking affection. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Within minutes, Willa had Dakota halted and walking docilely beside her, the neighbors partying in awe. Even Mrs. Henderson's fury was silenced as they passed. Willa glanced at Emmett with a smile that transformed her face. "Your north fence post is weak," she said lightly. "We should fix it before he decides on another stroll." Word of her feet spread through town before sundown. By afternoon, half the settlement had found excuses to visit Emmett's ranch. eager to glimpse the woman who had tamed a bull with nothing but her hands and her voice. Samuel Morrison and his sons lingered longest, watching her drive fence posts into the earth with effortless strength. For men who measured worth by muscle, Willa was both a marvel and a threat. For Emmett, her presence brought pride tangled with painful self-doubt. Could he provide for a woman like her? Could he measure up at all? That night, on the porch under the stars, their unspoken questions pressed heavy between them. "This isn't what either of us expected, is it?" Willa said at last, her voice weary. Emmett admitted quietly, "I should have been more honest, about being small, about feeling not enough." Her gaze softened. "Do you know what I saw today? I saw a man more worried about me than his pride. That's rarer than you think." For the first time, he realized she carried her own burdens, being seen as a curiosity, a challenge, a woman to test strength against rather than to share life with. She had longed for a partner, not an opponent. "So what do we do?" he asked. "We try," she said simply. "We try to build something different, together." Then she stood, brushing dust from her skirt, and smiled. "But first, you're going to propose properly, because right now, we're just two strangers sharing a porch." His hands trembled as he brought out the small wooden ring he had carved. It slid only to her second knuckle, too small, just like his fears had warned. But instead of disappointment, Willa smiled, her whole face alight. "You've spent 3 months making this for a woman you'd never met. That tells me who you are, Emmett Sloan. Careful, thoughtful, steady. Rings can be resized, character can't." And when she placed the ring back in his palm and said, "Ask me because you want to," Emmett finally saw her clearly, not as a towering shadow of inadequacy, but as the partner he had prayed for. "Willa Blaine," he said firmly, "will you marry me? Not because of letters or arrangements, but because I believe we can build something good, something neither of us could do alone." "Yes," she answered, "on one condition. We resize this ring together, and while I teach you cattle, you teach me woodwork." 6 months later, beneath autumn's golden sky, they stood in the little church before neighbors who had once whispered doubts and now watched in respect. The oak ring, perfectly fitted, gleamed on Willa's finger. Their marriage was not what either had imagined, it was better. A partnership forged from strength and tenderness, resilience and patience, built not on appearances, but on the unshakable truth of choosing each other.